Hello there, hope you are doing very good and welcome back to this series of tutorials on spin in quantum mechanics. And in this video, we are going to see what do we mean by a spinor representation and specifically in the context of an electron. So in the last video, we saw that we saw the explicit form, we derived the explicit form of the spin operators corresponding to an electron. And we saw explicitly that these have to be 2 by 2 matrices and 2 by 2 matrices because we saw that if we measure spin in any direction, be it x direction or z direction or any arbitrary direction, the outcomes, the possible eigenvalues are just two. It's either plus h cross by 2 or minus h cross by 2. So that means it's a two-dimensional Hilbert space. So it turns out that the spin matrices for an electron, it has to be 2 by 2 matrices. So, and the explicit form of matrices are this is the Sx, Sy and Sz for an electron. So these all are for electron. And if you are interested in seeing where these explicit forms these come from, you can go and watch my previous video. The link of that is in the description. But in any case, this is the explicit form for the spin operators for an electron. And in this video, we are interested in the form of wave functions for an electron. Wave function that would describe an electron. So this is what we'll see in this video. So immediately you can see that because these matrices Sx, Sy and Sz, these are 2 by 2 matrices. So these are going to act on column vectors with two entries. So that is two-dimensional column vector. So we can immediately conclude that the wave function that would describe an electron completely, that would be a two-dimensional column vector. So the wave function that would describe an electron would be in the form of column vector where there could be two entries here. And this is what we call a spinor representation for an electron. So spinor representation, it's nothing but a multi-component wave function that we use to describe a quantum particle which has non-zero spin. So this multi-component nature of the state vector that comes from the non-zero quantum mechanical spin. So that's why this is called a spinor representation of the wave function. And in the case of an electron, it's a two-component spinor. So for electron, it's a two-component spinor. So this is what we mean by a spinor representation. Now to describe in a most general way the state of an electron, it would be two components, but the two components in the most general sense could be some functions of xyz. It would be psi1 of xyz and psi2 of xyz. So this is the most general form of the wave function in the non-relativistic regime. So this is all in the non-relativistic regime. So I could write that this all is in non-relativistic regime. If you are concerned with the relativistic effects, then you describe your particle by a Dirac spinor, and that is a four-component spinor for an electron. But as far as non-relativistic effects are concerned, it's a two-component spinor. And this is the most general representation, two-component spinor whose entries are functions of x, y, and z. And this is different from what you know from, say, if you describe an electron in a hydrogen atom, we were able to do it in terms of scalar wave functions x, y, z, but that was because of the fact that we were just considering the orbital effects. The electron orbits around the nucleus, that is what we were considering, but we were not considering the spin into the picture. If we consider spin, it's a two-component spinor, it's a two-component wave function. So now another thing, one simplification that you can make in this context is that, as we know that the spin operators Sx, Sy and Sz, they have nothing to do with the continuous variable. So these does not depend on continuous variables, which are x, y, z, or maybe px, py, pz, etc. Any continuous variable has nothing to do with the spin operator. So if you are just concerned about the spin degree of freedom, you are not concerned about the orbital degrees of freedom, or maybe you are not concerned about linear momentum or kinetic energies, etc., then you don't even have to consider that there is an x, y, or z dependence in this wave function. So what I mean is that in the most general sense, the wave function is psi1 of xyz and psi2 as a function of x, y, or z. But if only spin is concerned, then you could equally well write your state vector as a two component column vector where the entries alpha and beta are just some complex numbers. So you don't have to be concerned about these dependence on the x, y, and z variables, and that is only when just spin is concerned. Spin degree of freedom is concerned. So this is equally well, this could also be considered as a most general case when you are just concerned with the spin. No coupling with orbital angular momentum or any other sort of kinetic energy, linear momentum, etc. So this is about the spinor representation. And these spinors, these are constrained by the physical requirements of physical probabilistic requirements. So because the probabilities have to sum to 1, so that is why these the normalization of these states, these states have to be normalized to unity. So what I mean is that if I call this state as psi, then the inner product of psi with itself, that has to be equal to 1. So that inner product you can calculate as alpha star beta star for the bra psi and alpha beta for the ket psi, and this comes out to be alpha mod square plus beta mod square. So this is the additional requirement that you put in physically on your wave function, that your electron is described by this kind of a wave function, and it is constrained, the alpha and beta complex numbers are constrained by this requirement because of the probabilistic interpretation, because the probabilities have to sum to 1. So this is about the representation, and in the more general case, when you represent your wave function by psi1 and psi2, in that case your normalization condition would read, instead of alpha mod squared plus beta mod squared equals 1, your normalization condition would read psi1 mod squared plus psi2 mod squared, and because psi1 and psi2, these are functions of x, y, and z, these continuous spatial degrees of freedom have to be integrated out, and this whole thing has to give you 1. So this comes from the additional probabilistic requirement that we know already. So this is about the spinor representation. So for electron, the spinor is just a two component object. In general, the components are some functions of x, y, z, but if just spin is concerned, these could be just some complex numbers. So this is the most general representation of the spin of an electron, and you cannot escape this multi-component behavior whenever you have a non-zero quantum degree of freedom. So that is why whenever you have a non-zero quantum spin degree of freedom, so that is why these multi-component representations are called spinor representations. So yeah, this is pretty much about this video about the spinor representation, and in the next video we'll start playing with this spinor representation. We'll look at more interesting probabilistic aspects of these spinors, and we'll see how these spinor representations, how these spinors, they tell you that the quantum spin is different from a classical spin, and these very striking differences between classical and quantum we'll be able to see in a different manner in the next video. So yeah, this is about this video. Hope you liked it. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions, you can write to me in the comment section. I'll be happy to address those. And thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe for the channel. See you next time. Bye-bye.